Should we do green? Or should we do something that matches my shirt? Should we do purple? Should we do like a teal? I definitely think a nice green matches the vibe of the garden. But then also a nice like warm yellow, maybe? Can't really see it though. Hey friends, it is Jenna, what is up? And welcome back to the Board Game Garden and welcome to another one of my Board Game 101 videos. So basically I've done a few of these in the past where I discuss one sort of board game mechanic. For those of you who are new to the hobby, this is a great way for you guys to get introduced to different mechanics in board games, and then after I introduce that specific mechanic, I go into my top favorite games, my top 10 favorite games in that category. So I've done in the past, I think I did worker placement and tile placement so far, and today we're going to be doing deck building. So there are a few different types of deck building, and I will be including a few of them in here. There are, I think, like 3 different types that I know of this sort of deck building mechanic. And if you guys are wanting to hear more about that, then just keep on watching. Give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoy. Also hit that subscribe button if you have not already. We'd love to have you here in the garden. And please, please, please comment down below right now any other mechanic in a board game that you guys want me to do one of these videos on, whether that be roll and writes, flip and writes. I will definitely be doing one of those in the future, or any other sort of mechanic that you guys want me to discuss here on the Board Game 101. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into this video, shall we? All right, so like I mentioned in the intro, there are a few different types of deck building. There are some like deck building, there's deck construction, different things like that. And basic premise of it is that you are gathering cards into your own deck of cards that you are building, a deck builder. But the differences between some of them is a deck builder, most of the time you have cards that you are building up your deck with, and on your turn you're picking up a certain amount of cards into your hand. I somehow got a piece of hair. Awkward. You have a certain amount of cards in your hand based off of the game's rules, and then you are playing out those cards on your turn into a discard pile, and then once your draw deck or the draw pile of your deck is completely run out, you actually take your discard pile, reshuffle those, and those end up being your draw deck. So you're continuously going through these cards, a few cards at a time, going from your draw deck to playing them to your discard deck, and then continuing that kind of recycling of it. There's also a big aspect of deck building where you are wanting to kind of exile cards or get rid of cards in order to have the better cards come up more often. So if you have some, typically there are some starter cards in the game that aren't as good, they're just very basic. And once you start building out your deck with better cards, it is really important to get rid of those more basic cards so that you have less in your deck and those better cards are coming out more frequently and your turns are not filled up with those more standard basic cards that you start with. So that is the basic deck building mechanism. And then there also is a slightly different type of deck building where the basic premise of it is the same, that you're building out a deck of cards by purchasing better cards. But the difference with this one is that on your turn, you are not picking up a certain amount of cards into your hand and then putting them to your discard. You are starting with all of the cards. You have access to all of the cards in your hand. A great example of this is Concordia, which yes, it will be somewhere in this top 10, but Concordia is a great representation of, like, I guess it's more like deck construction, but it's still considered deck building in BGG and that mechanic. The basic premise is pretty much the same, but you start with all of your cards in your hand and you are playing a card one by one until you don't have any cards left in your hand. In Concordia, you have a certain card called the Tribune that you then play, and that is going to get you all of your cards back. So you're not so much recycling through the deck, you are playing all of your cards and then getting them all back. So those are the two well-known types of deck building games. There's also deck construction, I think I referred to Concordia as deck construction, but it's more like hand management, I guess. There's also something called deck construction, which is more well known in like Magic the Gathering. I think it said like something like Smash Up or something like that, which I've never played before. But those ones you are configuring your deck beforehand. Magic the Gathering is a great representation of this, where you have like a lot of content and you are kind of curating your deck before you play the game, and then play the game with those cards. So there's not really a lot of purchasing cards and building your deck within the game, like during the game, but there is before the game, and you're kind of curating your own personal deck before you start playing. So yes, that is pretty much everything for the deck building mechanic. If you guys have any questions about that, definitely leave them down below and I will be sure to reply and answer those questions if you are new to the hobby. Deck building is definitely one of those mechanisms or mechanics that you are going to hear a lot of. I do not have the game, the most basic, the most well-known deck building game. I don't have it in my top 10, but that is Dominion. If you are wanting to kind of go into deck building, I would recommend trying that out. Francis and I have played Dominion before. We played it at a board game cafe. I didn't love it, and it's not one that like I would purchase for myself. I would play it again for sure, but it is the most just like basic deck building game. I will say, before we get into my top 10, a lot of deck builders, I find that deck building is a type of mechanism or mechanic that really pairs well with other mechanisms. So you will see a lot in here that a lot of these games that I love kind of pair deck building with worker placement, different sort of mechanics, and it really works well in a like group setting of other mechanics, if that makes sense. But anyways, that is everything for deck building. Again, if you have any questions, leave them down below. But without further ado, let's get into my top 10 favorite deck building games, which these are not just deck building games, they're games with deck building. They are in order from 10 to 1, so let's get into this, shall we? All right, so right off the bat, my number 10 is a game that I've only played once. I do not have physically, but it is a game that I really want to purchase in the future, but it is one that I think Francis will also enjoy, and it is one that is often compared to another game that I'm going to talk about soon. But that game is Dune Imperium. So this is quite a popular deck building worker placement game. I played this at BreakoCon just a few weekends back, probably like a month ago, and it is a fantastic game. I now know why everyone really talks about this game and really hypes it up, because it is really, really good. And the game that it gets compared to often is the Lost Ruins of Arnak, or Lost Ruins of Arnak, and I will be talking about that one soon. But I really think of both of them very individually. They're very different. The themes are completely different. They don't feel anything alike. So never think like, oh, I already have Lost Ruins of Arnak, I don't need to get Dune Imperium. They feel very different. They have similar mechanisms, obviously with the deck building and the worker placement, but the themes make them feel completely different. What you're doing in the game feels completely different. Dune Imperium has a little bit of like combat, which I'm usually not a fan of combat, but I was okay with it. It's not like a big part of the game, so I was good with it. But yes, basically on your turn, you, very much like Lost Ruins of Arnak, you have a certain amount of cards that you pick up from your draw deck. You have those to use. You have, at the start of the game, 2 workers that you are using cards in your hand. I believe you have a hand of 5 cards. You have 2 workers that you're going to be using 2 cards to place in different places. A lot of deck builders, not a lot of them, but some of them have multi-use cards, which I really enjoy. Lost Ruins of Arnak also has this, where the card can be used for different icons on one side, but then they also have a main ability on the bottom that if you play it as like an ability card, you get those things. But if you play it as a placement card, I guess that's what I can refer to it as, you use it for the icons on the side. So with Dune Imperium, you're playing 1 card, and then whatever icons are on the side is where you can choose to place your worker. You'll play another card, place a worker. You can get an additional 3rd worker at some point in the game. So you'd be able to play a third card, place a worker, and then the remaining cards that you have in your hand, you're just gonna place them down in front of you. This is very similar to Clank, which I will again be talking about very soon. But you put all of those cards, those remaining cards down, and whatever is at the bottom of those cards is going to be different resources and different spending points that you have to purchase more cards and gain resources. So really love that mechanism, or that way of using deck building in a game. I really enjoy Clank, which I will talk about soon, and I really enjoy Lost Ruins of Arnak. And I feel like Dune Imperium kind of mixes those two together. Obviously Clank is very different, and I will chat about that soon, but just really love that mix of those two games. And Dune Imperium has like some different factions you can play as. You have like special abilities, which is very fun. And I really enjoyed my one play that I've had of Dune Imperium. I'm excited to play it more, and I've heard that all of the expansions for Dune Imperium are also great. So that is my number 10. I'm sure it will skyrocket up this top 10 deck building games soon if I have the opportunity to play it more, and that if I do like add it to my collection, it'll probably go up. But as of right now, since I've only played it once, it is my number 10. Moving on to number 9. This is again one that I haven't played a lot, but I really enjoy. It is one that I do have physically and I want to play again, but that is Viscounts of the West Kingdom. So this is, I believe, the third in the West Kingdom trilogy by Garphill Games. You have Architects of the West Kingdom, you have, no, maybe this one's the second one. Or maybe it is the third one. Paladins of the West Kingdom, then Viscounts, or Viscounts and Paladins might be switched. I am not 100% sure. But I'm pretty sure this is the third in the West Kingdom series. And this one plays very different than the other ones. I haven't played Paladins yet. We still have that one on our shelf of opportunity, which we need to play that very soon, because I've heard that it feels like Hadrian's Wall, or just like a crunchy roll and write, but in a board game form. So I need to play Paladins of the West Kingdom soon. But Viscounts feels very different than the other one that I've played, which is Architects of the West Kingdom. Architects has more of a worker placement aspect, while Viscounts actually combines deck building with a little bit of like tableau building as well, and then also some like rondel mechanics. So this one combines some really interesting mechanics. Again, deck building mixed with other things just works so well in a board game, and it always ends up being something that I really enjoy. But basically in Viscounts of the West Kingdom, you are building up your deck of these people, these villagers, I think that's what they're called. But you are playing one onto your little conveyor belt. It's kind of like a conveyor belt tableau builder, where you're playing out one, the other cards that you have in front of you get slid over, one gets discarded, and then the new one moves in. So it's kind of like continuously moving this little conveyor belt of cards. I think you always have 3 in front of you. One gets placed, one gets picked up, and they all move over. And whatever cards that you have placed in front of you on your conveyor belt, they're gonna have icons representing the actions that you can do and the strength of that action, and then how many spaces you can move around the rondel. You're doing different actions on this rondel. You're putting different workers on this castle, which is a little bit of area majority. You're placing down buildings. You're doing a bunch of different things in Viscounts of the West Kingdom. Again, I haven't played it a ton, but I really enjoyed it the times that I have played it, and I'm excited to play it more. I really enjoy Garphill Games games. I loved this. I love Architects. I love Wayfarers of the South Tigris. Hadrian's Wall is like my favorite game. And then I am looking forward to getting Legacy of You very soon. But yes, Viscounts of the West Kingdom, really love, like I said, the mixture of different mechanisms with the rondel and the like conveyor belt tableau building, which I've never had in any other game, which is super fun, as well as the deck building. So yes, that is my number 9. That is Viscounts of the West Kingdom. Moving on to number 8. This is one that I think I'm going to be playing very soon. My friends Aiden and Tyler really want to play this. We were supposed to play it last night, but we ended up playing a like 3-hour game of Merchant's Cove, which I really enjoyed Merchant's Cove. Just a little spoiler there. Really enjoyed that. But the other game that we are wanting to play is this one right here. This is Lacrimosa. This is a gorgeous game. I love the way that this game looks. I love the theme of this game. Basically, you are a patron of, what's his name? Mozart? Mozart has died, and you are trying to prove to his widow that you are the best patron and you can complete his, whatever it's called. I forget what it's called. I'll put it here. But it's a very fun game. You are building a deck, obviously, of cards that you are placing into different slots on this board, and another one where you have multi-use cards. So the top portion of the cards in Lacrimosa are the actions that you'll be taking, and then the bottom portion of the card is going to be resources that you would gain for the next round. So you are placing 2 cards on your turn into your board. You're sliding one in at the top to use the top half of that card for an action, and then you're sliding another one at the bottom to gain resources for your next round. And every action in the game, you require specific resources. There are 3 different resources. There's like a red resource, a black resource, and a white resource. And you're trying to, think of what you're going to be doing on your next turn in order to, collect the certain amount of resources that you will need to do those things on your next turn. You are also going to be purchasing cards. One of the actions on the cards is to purchase more cards. So you are building your deck up with specific actions that you're wanting to be able to play and specific resources that you're wanting to play at the bottom to gain for future rounds. So really enjoy the unique aspect of Lacrimosa where you are sliding in those cards and purchasing more cards to build up this deck of cards that you can use. So that is Lacrimosa. This is my number 8. Definitely recommend, and I'm super excited to get this to the table again because I haven't played it in a while and I really enjoyed it the first few times that Francis and I have played it. This also can be played solo. Actually, all of the ones that I've talked about so far, Dune Imperium can be played solo, Viscounts of the West Kingdom can be played solo, and I want to play that solo, and then Lacrimosa can also be played solo. So excited to play them all solo and just play them in general. Yes, that is number 8, Lacrimosa. So moving on to number 7, this is one that Francis and I have had in the collection for quite a long time. It is one that I love so much. I believe this was in my top 20, and it's just so nostalgic to me. I love the theme of this game, and again, along with all of these other ones, it really combines some really interesting mechanics along with deck building. So the game that I'm talking about is Taverns of Tiefenthal. So this is a tavern building themed game. So you have your own tavern that you're building up and you're having customers come into your tavern. You are serving those customers. And I just love the theme so much. It is so cozy. Like, look at how cozy this box is. I always tell people that this is like one of the most coziest games. And it's a little bit of an interesting theme to be cozy, but just like, I don't know what it is about this game that makes me feel just so cozy. But yes, Taverns of Tiefenthal combines some like dice mechanism where you are drafting dice of different numbers and then using those different dice numbers as like worker placement things in order to do specific actions on your board. You can also upgrade your tavern. You can flip over different tiles to upgrade, and then the deck building aspect is in the guests. So you're going to be able to purchase guest cards. You're also going to be able to purchase additional like services for your tavern. You can get cards that are dishwashers that are going to help you with manipulating your dice. You can get servers, which allow you to have more dice to draft. You can get like beer people that like give you more beer for the dice that you're using, and it is just such a fun game. I definitely recommend this one. There is an expansion for this one that just recently came out called Open Doors, I believe, that adds like a little bed and breakfast kind of vibe to it, which makes me very happy, and I do want to try that one eventually. I just don't think it's very available here in Canada right now. I don't know if we're gonna get it soon, but definitely let me know if you know where to get the Open Doors expansion for Taverns of Tiefenthal in Canada. Let a girl know because I really want it. But yeah, Taverns of Tiefenthal is such a fun game. There is actually a little bit of like luck aspect to it because you are building out your deck, but then on your turn you are flipping out cards, and whenever you have flipped out the max amount of chairs for guests, you have to stop. So it's kind of a little bit of, not so much push your luck, I guess a little bit, but you're really trying to configure your deck as best as possible, get rid of some of those more basic guests in order to build up the better guests and have those come out more often. So I really love that. And yeah, that is Taverns of Tiefenthal. Definitely recommend. My number, what number was that? 7? 7. Moving on to my number 6. This again is a game that's a little bit more simple, and it again combines some very, very fun mechanism. This is, ooh, very loud, The Quest for El Dorado. So I do have the older version. My friend Aiden just recently purchased the one that has the updated art, and it is gorgeous, but I think I'm okay with this one. I do like the look of the box. A lot of people don't love it, but I enjoy it. But basically in The Quest for El Dorado, it is primarily a racing game, but it also combines that deck building where you are building out your deck of cards. You are picking up, I believe it's 5 cards on your turn. It could be 5 or 4. It might be 4, but whatever cards you have, each of the cards is going to have a different icon that's going to allow you to move to certain hexes on the map, and you are trying to be the first person to make it to the other side of the map, and then you will be the winner. There are like ore cards, there are like machete cards where you're like cutting through the grass, and there also are coin cards that get you through the desert. So whatever ones you get in your hand, you're going to be playing those down to move your meeple. You can also use the coin cards to buy more cards. You have better cards that you can choose from that get you more and get you more movement. And it's just a very basic deck builder game, but I think it is a great one to introduce to people that are new to deck building and like a good race. This game is just good fun. I love it, and it just makes you feel like you're just on the edge of your seat the entire time you're playing. So I definitely recommend it. If you are new to deck building, this is a good one to get started. Also, the Taverns of Tiefenthal, I think these two would be great to start off with, and possibly the next one that I'm going to chat about. So that is my number 6. That is The Quest for El Dorado. All right, so we are halfway there, and like I said, the next one is a great one to kind of start off deck building. I feel like this is one of the most well-known deck builders, and this one again combines deck building with just a fun, like searching aspect, I guess. But that game is Clank. This one specifically is Clank in Space, but I do have basic Clank, and I do recommend that one or Clank in Space. Both of them are pretty similar. There's just a few differences with Clank in Space that fixes some aspects of the original Clank, but I do think I still prefer the basic Clank theme. I like the whole like dungeon going down into a castle with a dragon kind of vibe, whereas this one you're on a spaceship with like an alien, I think. But yes, Clank in Space is fantastic. I realized when I was actually editing my last video, I apologize with how many times I say fantastic. Actually, it wasn't the last video. It was the, what was it? Solo recommendation video. I said this game is fantastic like 15,000 times. I am so sorry. But Clank in Space is fantastic. But in Clank in Space, you are having a certain amount of cards in your hand on your turn, and you are going to be placing them all down in front of you. This is a little bit of a different aspect to a deck builder that Clank has, which I really enjoy. And it's something that I mentioned when I talked about Dune Imperium, where with Dune Imperium, you're playing out a few cards to place your workers, but then the rest of them you were just placing down in front of you and then adding up the certain amount of like movement points or like buying power, I guess is what it's called. But in Clank in Space, that's what you're doing with all of your cards. So you have a certain amount of cards in your hand, you're placing them all down in front of you and then adding up the combat power that you have in order to defeat some monsters. You are adding up your movement points in order to move and collect different things in either the spaceship or in the dungeon. And then you also have your buying power, which allows you to buy stronger cards. And then each of the cards also do have additional like abilities and stuff. There are cards that give you clank, which clank are just your colored cubes that get added into a bag. And then whenever either the alien or the dragon attacks, you're going to be pulling out a certain amount of cubes from those bags, and whoever's cubes get pulled out is how much damage that they get. So you're trying to not make clank, which is like technically noise. You're trying to be quiet, but if you do make noise, clank gets added, and then there's more of a possibility that you are going to get hurt. So yes, I really love that aspect of a clank in Space. It just keeps you on the edge of your chair the whole time you're playing this game. I never can make it out in time. I'm horrible at clank, but I really enjoy the experience of it, and I definitely recommend it for, again, a very just intro deck building game, a very basic deck building game that adds a little bit more. It's not just solely deck building. Like I said, if you want just solely deck building, I recommend Dominion, but Clank is very basic deck building, but then adds a little bit extra on the side. So that is Clank in Space, and also just Clank. Definitely recommend. That is my number 5. Number 4 is a very different game to any of the many that I've talked about today, and that is Obsession. So Obsession, I don't really like, when I think of Obsession, I don't really automatically think like, oh, this is a deck building game, but it does have a deck building aspect, which very similar to Taverns of Tiefenthal, you are collecting guests. This one, you are also collecting guests, or I guess no, in Taverns of Tiefenthal, you're collecting customers as your deck building aspect, but Obsession, you're collecting guests as your deck building aspect. You're getting more basic guests, and then you are also getting some more prestigious guests that get you more victory points. Basically, you are collecting guests in order to invite them to different events that you're hosting. In Obsession, you are a family in the Pride and Prejudice era, prejudice era. I don't know if I'm saying that right. And you were trying to just become the most like well-known, the most prestigious family of them all to get the attention of the Fairchilds and just to gain better guests and host better events to get as many victory points as possible. And one thing is that deck building aspect where you are gaining different guests, and then at the end of the game you will be counting up all of the victory points on each of the guests that you have in your deck that you built. And then you're also trying to think of like what services, so in Obsession you have workers, so it's a little bit of a worker placement game as well, where those workers are going to be placed onto the guest cards. So you're trying to make sure you're getting guests that you have the correct servers for, if that makes sense. So if you have a lot of the green meeple, which I believe they are called valets, those are used for the male guests. So you're trying to say like, oh, if I have a lot of those, I might want to get some more male guests. If I have more of the like purple meeple, I want to try to get more of the female guests so that I have the correct servers in order to serve my guests that I want to invite to my party. And then each of the guests have different rewards that they give you if you invite them to your event. And yes, I just really enjoy Obsession. The theme is fantastic. The integration of the theme in with the mechanics and just everything that's going on in the game is absolutely fantastic, and I definitely recommend. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous game, and it really uses the deck building. It's not like a huge part of the game, but it uses it really, really nicely. So yes, that is my number 4. That is Obsession. Moving on to my number 3. This is a game that I haven't chatted about in a little bit, but I do think I might be playing this weekend at a local convention. I'm very, very excited. A lot of people that are going there that I'm meeting up with, which a lot of them are part of the Board Game Garden community, so shout out to you guys. Can't wait for this weekend. But a lot of them said that they wanted to learn this game right here, and that is Seize the Bean. I freaking love this game. This game, more people need to try it, so I'm hoping that the publisher, which is Quality Beast, definitely comes out with another printing of this because I really, really enjoy this game. Seize the Bean, again, very much like Taverns of Tiefenthal and Obsession, you're building out a deck of guests or customers at your coffee shop, which is so much fun. You are building out your coffee shop to have better worker placement spots so that you can have better customers and more well-suited customers for your cafe, because you're going to be adding different improvements to your cafe that have a certain theme. In this game, you are choosing a certain amount of types of guests or types of customers that then you have the matching improvements for and matching like food additions for. So if you're adding those food things and improvements to your cafe of that specific category, more of that specific category's customers are going to want to come to your cafe, and each of the customer groups have different abilities that they're going to be giving you as you are serving them. Again, much like Taverns of Tiefenthal, you are just flipping out your guests. A certain amount of guests will come out, or customers will come out that you have to serve with coffee and cream and sugar and different snacks and things. And it is just so much fun. You're building out your customer group. At the end of the game of Seize the Bean, if you have the most of a certain type of customer group, you get a certain amount of victory points. And I just really enjoy this game, and I'm so excited to play it this weekend, hopefully. My hair got caught underneath Seize the Bean, apparently. But yes, that is Seize the Bean. Definitely recommend if you have the opportunity to play it. I recommend, but I love it so much, and that is my number 3. Moving into the top 2. So I do think I already mentioned both of these, but my number, oh wow, this is interesting. Basically, my number 2 was my number 3 of all time. So clearly the number 1 has passed my number 3, but it's because I've been playing more of my number 1 on BGA, and I've really been enjoying it. Just, you know, diving more into the strategy of the game and stuff, but that is my number 1. My number 2 is, or was, my number 3 of all time, but I guess it's moved down a little bit. But that is Concordia. So Concordia, like I mentioned in the intro, has a little bit of a different deck building aspect to it than a lot of the others, where this one, you're not so much building out a deck that you're drawing from, but you're building out a hand. So I guess it's not so much a deck building game, but it's like a hand configuration. But this is still in that same genre. It just works slightly different than the others, but I really enjoy it. You're still purchasing cards to add to your hand to make your deck/hand better. You are playing out these cards to do different actions. Some of them will get you different resources, get you money, allow you to buy more cards, to put out more buildings on the map, different things like that. If you see Concordia and you say, oh my goodness, that looks so boring, do not let it fool you. It is a fantastic game, and I love it so much. It can be played solo with the Concordia Solitaria expansion, which I need to play again. But this is one of my favorite games. I love the hand configuration of this one, and just playing down those cards, and then eventually when you don't have any other cards left but your Tribune, which is a specific card, you can play your Tribune before you like have no more cards to play. But I usually try to play all my cards before I play the Tribune, because the more cards that you have played when you play the Tribune, the more coins you're going to get, which is nice. But you play the Tribune, that's going to get you coins based off of how many cards you've played and how many cards you're getting back, and then you get all of those cards back to then start fresh and have all of these new cards to play down, and it's just absolutely fantastic. Again with fantastic, but I really enjoy Concordia. That is my number 2 deck building / hand building configuration game. And we have made it to my number 1 deck building game. I do think that Dune Imperium might, you know, make it up this list the more that I play it, because this game and Dune Imperium are pretty similar. I've already chatted about it. I'm just going to take it out so you guys aren't wondering anymore. I'm sure you already knew, but my number 1 is Lost Ruins of Arnak. Very much like Dune Imperium, this is kind of putting together deck building as well as worker placement, and it works kind of similarly with the multi-use cards. So you're going to have a certain amount of cards in your hand. You're going to be playing out cards that you're going to be using for a certain symbol on that card to place out workers on certain spots, and then the remaining cards that you have in your hand, you can be playing them down for their other ability, which is, you know, some certain abilities. Some might get you some different resources, some might allow you to purchase more cards, different things like that with certain resources. There's just a bunch of cards in this game that get you different abilities and stuff like that. But I personally like the theme of Lost Ruins of Arnak more than I enjoy the theme of Dune Imperium. A lot of people go back and forth between these two and say which one is better, but again, like I talked about with Dune Imperium, they are completely different games. They feel completely different, but I really enjoy the act of, in Lost Ruins of Arnak, just trying to get the most done on a round as I possibly can. Really try to elongate the actions that I can do by using my cards, by going up the research track, then might get you something additional that you can do another thing, and that might get you more things to do more things. And it's just this constant chaining of trying to get as much done on a turn as you possibly can, or get as much done on a round as you possibly can, because you're playing through, I think, six rounds possibly, or 5. The Leaders, Expedition Leaders expansion is also great. And then there's a new expansion coming out soon that's like cooperative Lost Ruins of Arnak, which I'm not sure I'm gonna love because I typically don't love cooperative things, but we will see. I might try it out, but that is my number 1, I almost said worker placement, deck building game. That is Lost Ruins of Arnak. All right, friends, so that is going to be everything for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing my top 10 deck building games. If you did, give this video a big thumbs up. Also hit that subscribe button if you've not yet done so. We'd love to have you here in the garden. Definitely let me know down in the comment section other mechanics that you guys want me to do for this series, my Board Game 101 series. It might be mechanics that you want to know my top 10 of, or just mechanics that you guys want to know more about. I try my best to explain them at the beginning of these videos, so hopefully I did well with deck building. Hopefully you guys have a good rest of your day. Hopefully you have a good weekend. I love you so, so much. Remember, you are somebody's reason to smile, and I will see you guys in the next board game video. Bye, friends.